So in this case, we're talking about a manufacturer of truck door products, and the problem behind that being that it was a slightly older website, so there are just some concerns of updating things, but also there are many data heavy products. So how do we make sure that people can find the products that are most applicable to them and make sure they can compare things and understand what those products are to fit their needs? We also know that there were some customers who were not choosing to use the website now. So how can we make sure that that experience was effective for them when they were on the site? So one thing we like to look at here is understanding how the site was structured to begin with. And one way that we like to do that is called website scraping to help us understand just how the site is set up and where there might be things we could dive deeper into with some data. In this case, we were looking at the clicks that were necessary to access anything on the site. How many clicks did it take to get to any piece of content on the site? We want the majority of pages on the site to be accessible within 3 clicks or less. So with a click on a navigation item, one more click and one more click, and you can get to basically anything on the website. That's the goal. When we looked at this site to begin with, that ratio was sort of skewed. A lot of pages were taking a lot of clicks to get to, at least more than 3. So we wanted to figure out why that was and where we were seeing that many clicks happen. Because typically if we see content need a lot of clicks to get to, well, people get annoyed when they have to click through a bunch of pages to get to the content they're looking for. And usually it's a sign that something could be cleaned up to make a slightly better experience, help people do that more efficiently. When we looked at those pages that were taking a bit more effort to get to, it was all focused on product search. And looking at that product search and how users were clicking through there, that was what was taking them the most time. So how can we better understand why that was and how we can improve that experience? Well, we went back to heat maps. Heat maps, again, a great place to look at that data. And in here we could see if we knew clicks were taking a lot of clicks to get places, well, where are those clicks happening? And better understanding where people were moving their mouse, how they were clicking around, and better understanding that it was just that there was a lot of options for them. And if we could streamline that experience, make it much more tailored, much more directed, well, they probably wouldn't need to click as much because they would just be driven to where they need to go. We also could use recordings of people interacting with that page, clicking around, moving their mouse around the page. There's ways to gather recordings and actually see where someone's mouse moves, where they're trying to click, and understand better where those issues and where people are clicking that takes them so much time. And again, this also confirmed what we were seeing from the heat maps, that it was typically in the product search phase, that people were taking a lot of time to click around, and it was taking them a lot of clicks to get to those end pages that were the pages they were actually looking for. So our goal came down to, let's figure out a way we can streamline that approach to make it much easier for people to find those products without having to click so much. So I'll pass it over to Jenna.
So it's easy to give an outdated website an updated look, but it takes user research and data to make the design work better for the businesses. So as Caitlin mentioned, the site's product search function needed a major update in not only how products were categorized, but how the filtering and search function worked as well. So let's take a look here at the search. So the product search overall has an easier interface that allows users to better narrow down their search, and the filtering might look really simple at first, but once you start to select a product category, for example, if we select cams here, you'll see that more filtering options start displaying. It would be really overwhelming to display every single filtering configuration for all the different product categories at the same time, so displaying only the filtering options needed as they go along streamlines that process dramatically. So you can see if we go to cams and then we make some additional selections here, we are narrowing down our product search. And the product detail pages are also more useful to the users, which include breadcrumbs up here so the users can orientate themselves on how they got to a specific product page. We also included things like the features and benefits. We have this nice interactive table here, the image, and then one of the bigger changes that we were able to implement was the ability to put related resources here automatically. So initially the resources were scattered throughout the entire website, and we were able to create a resource library for them that actually looks pretty similar to the product library. This consolidation also granted the design the flexibility to automatically showcase relevant resources as it related across the site. So you can see here, if I filter by lock rods, I can select one of the resources. And one thing I wanted to point out here was also a lot of great content was hidden in PDFs that required users to download in order to get the information they needed. So we actually pulled that content from the PDFs and built out actual website pages using it. And this made the content experience a little bit more seamless and created a more interactive approach as well. As you can see, we were able to create an accordion here for the users to engage with, and then also show other related resources to this resource automatically. It's also important to highlight that in addition to consolidating content, improving filtering features, and establishing that resource library, we also undertook the development and integration of a new brand identity. So this updated appearance more authentically reflects the company's essence to its users. And before we got there, the imagery was entirely focused on their products, which is great, but we did add new imagery that included the products in action to kind of be a little bit more engaging to the users. And we also included more visuals of the people that work at PowerBrace behind the scenes. So this approach really seeks to captivate users and cultivate a more engaging and immersive brand experience, which also leads to an improved user experience on the overall website.
One last thing about that project is if our concern was clicks, it's not so much anymore. We see that ratio completely flipped with the new approach. So things being accessible much faster, much easier for users to find what they're looking for. And again, this is an example of using that data after the fact as well. So while the data is great to point you towards the things that could be improved and the best way to make improvements that to meet the needs of your users, you can also use data after the fact to say, hey, look, we can see that those changes were made. We can see things are accessible much more quickly now, and really the exact opposite of the problems we were seeing at the beginning.